Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here, and this is Double Manga Duel to the Death, formerly known as Shoujo versus Shonen. And I actually have a Shonen and a Shoujo this time. The title for this series can never settle down. So, today I read the case study of Vanitas by Jun Mochizuki, Volume 3, and I read Fairy Cube, Volume 1, story and art by Kaori Yuki. These are both recommends for different reasons, and Fairy Cube is one of the weirdest ones I've ever read. But first let me talk about the case study of Vanitas. So this came out 2017. Mark my words, this is going to be the hot anime of 2019 or 2020. Whenever they start making that anime, everybody's going to be cosplaying it. Everybody's going to be doing the fan art of it. If you liked Full Metal Alchemist, well, first off, the creator of Full Metal Alchemist loves the series and highly recommends this series, and reading it, I'm starting to get a feel for why. It's that really sophisticated, really detailed, really well thought out and rich adventure story with, it's got some humor, it's got some mystery, it's got some action, it's got some romance, and it's consummate professionalism, the case study of Vanitas. The thing I wanted to say about Volume 3 is it's continuing to develop the, excuse me, Cop Squad. It's not exactly a Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson relationship, but there's an echo of that, and it's developing that further, where Noe hates Dr. Vanitas's guts. He's an absolute jerk, and what I love about him is he's consistently a jerk, but he's not overbearing for the audience, so he's always amusing in his jerkishness. I guess I'll have to spoil Volume 1. Highest recommendation, go read Case Study of Vanitas. Volume 1 of Case Study of Vanitas opens with the promise that although they are working together, No says he eventually has to kill Dr. Vanitas, and that's the hook. So all this time, they're going on these adventures, and you feel like it's building towards something important and exciting. And that's kind of like a promise from the author that I'm taking you somewhere on this story. And what helps me feel like the author has the ability to fulfill that promise is the entire time I'm on the journey, it feels enjoyable, and it always feels like the story is going somewhere with everything. It's not just a bunch of flighty interactions. Like the characters, Dr. Vanitas appears to have a crush on Jean, the badass bro they fought in the first volume, and she's not quite sure how she feels. There's some things where, vampires drinking blood, it's kind of a metaphor for sex, but not quite. It's sort of viewed as a taboo to, drink someone's blood in public, because it's sort of seen as a form of public display of affection. We meet some of the, dukes and lords of vampire society, and there are just these great moments where you think it's going one direction, and then because Dr. Vanitas is such a jerk and he's so single-minded, he'll screw things up for them, and they have to run away or they get kicked out. It also has this great balance of action. I want to find the priest. So they eventually meet the Catholic Church. And in any vampire story, the Catholic Church is going to have something to do with it, right? And I really like how they balanced the character of the Catholic priest in this. Roland Fortis. So what to say about this? In almost any vampire story, you're going to see the cross show up, or you're going to see this church show up. It's not because they're really interested in the theology of it. They're just interested in having some priests versus vampires in this fantasy world. What I like about this is this feels like a semi-realistic expectation of what the Catholic Church might do in a weird vampire universe where vampires are, undermining the laws of nature that would be viewed as an affront to the laws of nature, and you'd need an army of really capable Catholic soldiers to protect people from vampires. I like how they feel like fully dimensional characters. It would make sense if humans were at war with vampires to have killer priests who are really good at killing vampires and protecting people. So they don't just come off as, oh, they're Catholics, they're evil, religion's bad. It comes off as they're sort of misguided in their hatred of vampires, but they're human beings. And I love that Roland Fortis is kind of portrayed as a bit of a condescending tool. He doesn't believe that Dr. Vanitas could possibly be guilty of conspiring with vampires, because that just seems like, how could you possibly work with a vampire? They're just too evil. They're just entirely too evil, right? So Fortis has the problem of he's never been exposed to vampires before, and he's never like broadened his worldview, but he's actually very enthusiastic and caring and concerned for people's well-being, even though he's kind of he's sort of sanctimonious. And so what's funny about that is, even as he's fighting Noah as kind of like a country bumpkin vampire really likes Fortis and feels like he's actually a good guy while they're trying to kill each other. So what I like about this is the use of a religious character or a religious idea in a vampire story, where it has a little bit more depth than just, oh, they're vampires, they're scared of crosses. But it's also not as simple as, oh, the church is bad and the vampires are good, because that's the opposite of what you'd expect. I have a strong feeling that we're going to be seeing more of Roland Fortis, and I don't think he's such a bad guy as he first comes off, even though he has a strong desire to hunt vampires. And there's this like really epic sequence for him. Like, epic sequences are so important, I think, for an action-adventure story. So, all this cool mystery, investigating the catacombs of Paris, which are totally real. I love the real flavor of it. So then after looking like this little, doughy-eyed, angelic-faced cherubic goofball, Fortis says, "We are the chasseurs, the indestructible blades that hunt the crimson-eyed heretics who warp the principles of the world God has created." And then he stabs himself with the drug. Ah, man, that is so dope. And then the fight scene is like understandable, and it's got, like a high rush of energy to it. So completely dope. This is going to make a really great anime. As a manga, it's really rich and detailed and varied. I think you're just gonna dig it and start getting into it. So I want to show the pages of concept art. Hey, props to all the people who worked on this in the special thanks page. I love when they do that. They always have like little funny gags at the end, and they're genuinely funny. I laugh at them. And it's just so much attention to detail and like the tiny little mannerisms and fashion statements of the characters. So absolutely fantastic. Get on this train now, because you're going to start hearing more and more about the case study of Vanitas when the anime comes out. In the tradition of Full Metal Alchemist, and in the tradition of Watson Holmes, while crafting its own legacy. And it's not like stupid Sherlock, like BBC Sherlock. It's the actual pathos of Sherlock's character, where the point of Sherlock's character is he's kind of antisocial, but he's really determined. Can I go on a tangent about Sherlock Holmes? Yes, I can. Okay, Sherlock Holmes, the point of Sherlock Holmes isn't that he's like the smartest guy in the room. Mycroft Holmes is smarter than Sherlock Holmes. The point of Sherlock Holmes is that he's intense and driven. That's what makes Sherlock Holmes Sherlock Holmes. Okay, tangents aside, this carries on that tradition. Fairy Cube. Fairy Cube came out in 2002, and reading it, looking at the back where someone cut out the brochure to get, shoujo beat, I could tell like this was the prompt for some great 2002 high school fan fiction stuff. The kind of stuff that, the term Mary Sue was made to make fun of, and I'll show you what I mean in one panel. The boy with red eyes and green hair. Haha, the look on Ian's face when you said that. And then you said, the lady has purple hair and pink eyes. That makes my blue eyes and blonde hair less special, huh? So this is like all about like the pretty girls with the fabulous colored hair and the two colored eyes. That was like a whole genre of, weird, edgy high school fiction. Maybe still today, but especially in the early 2000s, like right after 9/11, like there was like a noticeable uptick, and if you didn't notice it, that meant you were writing it, of weird fantasy story where all the main characters have like abusive backgrounds or tragic backstories, and there's like the magical powers that they take over, and then they're the most but what I love about Fairy Cube is Kaori Yuki is like a consummate professional. The art saved it. Like, if I had just been reading the first few pages, I might have gotten annoyed and given up on this for a lesser artist. Really solid manga artist. So the art kind of got me into it. And then the more I got into it, the more I started enjoying it, because it's so weird. So the Fairy Cube is the kind of thing that would inspire like a awful high school fan fiction. But it itself is actually pretty well done. In fact, it has the opposite problem of a lot of contemporary manga, where if this story was told in 2016, like I'd have to get to like this point before he'd meet the ancient shopkeeper and start going on his adventure. But for Kaori Yuki, the pacing is just boom, 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 boom. Like, doesn't even like take those 2 pages to set you up for the next thing. Boom, you're there. So like, oh, boom, let's meet our main characters. Boom, here's their backstories and what they think each other. And you got to be reading to pay attention because you got to pick up everything about their relation. Boom, murders, and they seem to look like fairies. Who is the fairy murder? Boom, mysterious shopkeeper and his creepy doll showing up at the murder scene. Boom, the evil fairy following the protagonist around has taken over his body, and now he's gonna get his girlfriend. Oh, I gotta do something. Boom, let's go talk to the shopkeeper, and boom, the fairy's mad at me, and boom, we're in the fairy world. Like at this far in, and there have been like 6 significant dramatic revelations, and we're going on our adventure. I really dig it. Oh, and boom, like the father kills his son, but the father is mind control. I love it. It's a little weird in how fast it's hitting you with those things. Like, just as soon as you feel like you've got a handle on what's going on, bam, the next thing whacks you over the head. And it does have that really kind of silly, exuberant, a fever dream. It reminds me of a fever dream where you just woke up and you just said all those things and it kind of made sense in the dream. And then the logical part of your brain comes in and tries to make sense of those things. Well, if they have magic powers, what are the details of their magic powers? And what are the consequences of using? That's the logical part of your brain. Fairy Cube comes from that part of your brain that, very appropriately, because it's about fairies, is interested in like the mystical and the weird and the bizarre and unexplainable. I also like that the fairies in this world do have, like, they are the little pixies with wings and pretty hair, but they're terrifying and they're powerful. They're pretty much little tiny bundles of magic, and there are the scary, like, big monstrous fae too. So it's, even though if you look at it and say, oh, it's those goofy little, Tinkerbell fairies, it's actually evoking the idea of the fair folk, the land of the fairy, nicely, and kind of the terror and the overwhelming power that they would have. Like, that's a really ancient idea. People have said that, like medieval people would talk about fairies, and then, people in the 21st century talk about alien abductions, and there's a lot of overlap to that. Like, it's the exact same kind of weird mystical experience that inspires someone to write a fairy story, that inspires them to talk about how, the aliens kidnapped them and took them into their, great glowing ship. And so the main character, Ian, finds himself in this situation where he's kind of a little prissy boy, but he's got to like get his body back and prove to his longtime best girlfriend from childhood that he is who he is, and the evil fairy isn't him, right? And so he kind of rises to the occasion, and even though he's like a little bit of a cry boy, he's behind the 8 ball and he's starting to kick butt to get to that point, which is what earns the respect of this fairy girl, and then that sets them up for their adventure to get back into the human world and get the girl back. So I really enjoyed it. I'm going to read volume 2. It has got to be one of the weirdest manga I've read because of the tight pacing and just how quickly things move. But Kaori Yuki's like a consummate professional. I also want to take a quick peek at her bio because, like, this shows that she's a professional. Kaori Yuki was born in Tokyo and started drawing at a very early age. Following her debut work, Natsufuku no Eri, Ellie in Summer Clothes, in the Japanese magazine Besatsu Hama to Yume, she wrote a compelling series of short stories, Zankoku na Dowatachi, Cruel Fairy Tales, Neji Screw, and Sareki Okoku, Gravel Kingdom. As proven by her best-selling series Angel Sanctuary and Godchild, her celebrated body of work has etched an indelible mark on the gothic comics genre. She likes mysteries and British films and is a fan of the movie Dead Poet Society and the television show Twin Peaks. A consummate artistic professional making something that doesn't feel like it should work. One of the most polished and best series I've read in years. Will be a epic that people are going to be talking about for years. This is the best waifu seasonal anime of 2019 or 2020. Get on the bandwagon, and you will be a cool hipster kid who liked it before it's cool. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. I love my patrons on Patreon, and I'll catch you later.